I am fated with misfortune, a natural-born jinx. Right after I was born, I was swapped, and within 3 years, my adoptive parents' home was in constant turmoil, so they sent me to a Taoist temple overnight. My master said I have too much hostility and need to rest quietly, or I will bring death to everyone around me. 20 years later, my biological parents finally remembered me. The day I returned to the wealthy family, the fake heiress Su Nuanyuan held my hand, crying as if she were a pear blossom bathed in rain. "Sister, I'm so glad you're back. It's all my fault. I shouldn't have taken over your life." As she spoke, she accidentally slipped under her feet and was about to fall toward me. I stepped back half a step without any expression on my face. The antique vase behind her suddenly and inexplicably exploded with a bang, all on its own. Shards splattered all over her. The sound she let out was no longer a delicate, tearful sob, but a terrified, agonizing scream. Nuan Nuan, my biological parents, Su Jianqing and Lin Hui, immediately rushed over. Without even glancing at me, they anxiously helped Su Nuan Nuan up and checked her wounds. "What's going on? How could this happen out of nowhere?" Lin Hui's voice was sharp and furious as she suddenly looked up, glaring at me. "Ever since you arrived, trouble follows. You're nothing but a jinx." I stood in place, watching the harmonious scene of their family of 3. Feeling completely unmoved inside. My master once said that the more intense my emotional fluctuations, the stronger the magnetic field of misfortune around me becomes. I just want peace and quiet. I don't want to cause any trouble. Just then, a tall and handsome man rushed down from upstairs. It was my elder brother, Su Mingxian. Seeing Su Nuanyuan injured, his face instantly turned ashen, and he pointed at my nose, shouting, "Get out, our family doesn't welcome a scheming, malicious woman like you." His finger was almost poking the tip of my nose. I calmly looked up, gazing at his face contorted with anger. The next second, the edge of that expensive Persian rug under his feet suddenly curled up on its own, precisely tripping his ankle. Su Mingxian let out a cry of surprise, his center of gravity completely thrown off. He fell face first solidly into a dog-eating mud position, his front teeth seemingly hitting the floor with a dull thud. "Mingxian!" Lin Hui screamed, letting go of Su Nuanyuan as she rushed to help her son. Wearing 10-centimeter high heels, she ran too hastily, and one of the heels on the smooth marble floor mysteriously and crisply snapped with a crack. Her foot twisted, and she tumbled to the ground in an utterly awkward position. For a moment, the living room was in chaos, with cries of pain and screams rising one after another. I quietly skirted around them, found a single-seat sofa in the corner to sit down, placed my canvas bag by my feet, as if everything happening before me had nothing to do with me. Only second brother Su Mingzhi, the man who had been leaning against the second-floor railing with a scrutinizing gaze since I entered, was now standing in the distance, not approaching. He watched this series of coincidences with a look full of suspicion and inquiry, his brows tightly furrowed. Su Nuanyuan, who had been helped up by the servant, was still crying, her voice tinged with a hint of fear. "Dad, Mom, it's not sister's fault. It was all an accident. Really, it was all an accident." I felt slightly annoyed inside. I just wanted to find a place with strong energy, like this mansion, to suppress the hostility within me and live a peaceful, stable life. But why did they have to provoke me, too? The dinner atmosphere was particularly stifling, with not a single word of conversation, so quiet it made everyone uncomfortable. At the long dining table, Su Jianqing and Lin Hui had dark expressions, while my eldest brother Su Mingxuan's lips were swollen like sausages, and the look in his eyes seemed as if he wanted to devour me whole. Su Nuanyuan, wrapped in bandages, sat beside Lin Hui, occasionally casting a venomous glare in my direction. Only my second brother, Su Mingzhi, sitting across from me, watched me with keen interest. The servants brought the dishes one by one, moving carefully to avoid making any noise. Just as a bowl of Buddha jumps over the wall was about to be placed in front of me, Su Nuan, who was sitting beside me, accidentally elbowed backward, precisely hitting the servant's arm. "Ah!" the servant exclaimed in surprise, her hand trembling. The bowl of piping hot, rich soup, filled with delicacies from land and sea, immediately tilted and splashed toward my face and neck. A triumphant, Cold smile curled at the corner of Su Nuan's lips. Everyone held their breath. I couldn't even be bothered to dodge. I just tilted my head slightly and watched that bowl of soup. An incredible scene unfolded, the hot soup in mid-air, as if pulled by an invisible force, traced a bizarre arc, perfectly bypassed me, and then, without spilling a single drop, it all poured onto the head of my elder brother Su Mingxian, who was just about to start cursing at me. Ah! A pig slaughter-like scream echoed through the restaurant. Su Mingxian leaped up from his chair. Scalded by the hot soup that streamed down his hair, smearing his face, abalone and sea cucumber clung to his cheeks, making him look both ridiculous and pitiful. Oh my God, get a towel, quick, Lin Hui screamed, flustered and panicked. After the brief but intense pain, Su Mingxian was consumed by overwhelming rage. He wiped the mess off his face, his eyes bloodshot and fixed on me. You jinx, I'm going to kill you. He went crazy, roaring as he charged towards me, raising his hand. I looked at him calmly, not moving an inch, just as he rushed in front of me, with his hand about to strike. The screws securing the Swarovski crystal chandelier above his head seemed to loosen all at once, emitting a grating creaking sound, and the entire fixture began to shake violently. Brother, watch out! Su Mingzhi, who had been silent all along, suddenly changed his expression. He sprang up from his seat, rushed over in a swift stride, and with all his might, pulled Su Mingxian aside. Boom! Almost the very next second after they moved away, the massive crystal chandelier crashed down, landing heavily right where Su Mingxian had been standing, directly in front of my dining table. The expensive dining table was shattered into pieces, with crystal fragments and food debris scattering everywhere, leaving a scene of utter chaos. The entire room fell into dead silence. Everyone was terrified out of their wits by this sudden disaster. Su Mingxuan's face was deathly pale as he stared blankly at the pile of rubble. If Su Mingzhi had been a second later, he would have been crushed. Cold sweat instantly soaked through his undershirt. Accidents. They're all accidents. My nominal father, Su Jianqing, forced himself to appear calm as he waved his hand. Though his voice trembled, tomorrow I'll have someone come and inspect everything in the house. He didn't dare look at me, as if I were some kind of terrifying creature. I calmly wiped the corner of my mouth with a napkin, set down my chopsticks, and stood up. I'm full. Then, I turned around and prepared to go back to the guest room arranged for me upstairs. Stop right there. Behind me, my still shaken eldest brother, Su Mingxian, unwilling to give up, pointed at my back and roared angrily. He seemed to have forgotten that every time he harbored ill intentions toward me, he would face retribution. As soon as the words fell, he stepped on a sharp fragment of a chandelier, causing his foot to slip. He lost his balance, tumbled from the nearby chair, and his waist hit the armrest heavily. Ouch, my waist! Su Mingxian let out a painful groan, curling up on the floor. I didn't look back. I could feel that behind me, the gaze of my second brother, Su Mingzhi, had completely shifted from suspicion and inquiry to a complex mix of fear, awe, and a hint of excitement. He watched my retreating figure, then looked at the eldest brother wailing on the floor, and his expression completely changed. This house is really noisy. 3. I had just sat down in the smallest, most remote guest room assigned to me when there was a knock at the door. Su Nuan stood at the doorway, holding a glass of milk, looking pitiful. Sister, I'm sorry. It's all my fault today. This room is too small. It's unfair to you. Mom and Dad love me the most, so they gave me the master bedroom, which should have been your princess room. How about you move into my room, and I'll stay in the guest room? Her words were spoken just loud enough for our parents, who had come out of their room to check on Su Mingxian's injury, to hear. Sure enough, Lin Hui immediately rushed over, shielding Su Nuan behind her and glaring at me angrily. Su Qing. What more do you want? Nuan is so sensible, can't you learn from her? Are you only satisfied after taking your sister's room? Su Jianqing also said with a dark expression. Enough, the family is already chaotic enough, can't you just behave? My eldest brother, Su Mingxian, who had just been helped up by Su Mingzhi and the servant, limped and covered his waist, standing like a door god in front of Su Nuan's room, roaring at me. As long as I'm here, don't even think about going in. The whole family was gathered together, united against a common enemy. I looked at them and sighed helplessly. I didn't really care where I lived originally, as long as it was quiet, but now, they're using this room as a weapon against me, then I won't hold back. I looked at Su Mingxian without saying a word, simply lifted my foot, and prepared to walk past him. How dare you? Su Mingxian roared, just about to reach out and push me, just as he raised his hand. The ornate European-style plaster molding on the door frame above his head suddenly made a sharp cracking sound, broke off entirely, and fell precisely, hitting him squarely on the head. Thud, with a dull thud, Su Mingxian's eyes rolled back, and without even a groan, he passed out. Mingxian, son, Su Jianqing and Lin Hui screamed as they rushed over. Su Jianqing frantically tried to pull out his phone to call for an ambulance, but as soon as he took it out of his pocket, the screen flickered twice, went completely black, and was rendered useless. Lin Hui tried to help Su Mingxian, who was lying on the ground, but she stepped on a piece of fallen plaster debris, lost her balance, and with a scream, ended up in a heap with her unconscious son. The entrance instantly descended into chaos. Sun Wanwan was so frightened that her face turned pale, and she kept stepping back. Her eyes filled with unprecedented fear as she looked at me. I sighed again. Bypassing the chain accident scene at the door, and walked into that huge princess room that belonged to Sun Wanwan. The room was filled with a fragrant scent, decorated luxuriously and full of girlish charm. More importantly, this room was located in the best spot of the entire villa, with ample sunlight and abundant positive energy. As soon as I stepped inside, I felt the faint sense of oppression and hostility around me ease considerably. This place is perfect for me to retire. I closed the door with satisfaction, shutting out the noise from outside. At the end of the hallway, Su Mingzhi leaned against the wall. Having witnessed the entire scene, he silently gave a thumbs up in the direction of my door, then calmly took out his phone and skillfully dialed 120. Hello, is this the emergency center? The address is, for, a series of accidents has cast the Su family under an eerie silence. No one dares to speak loudly to me anymore. Su Mingxian lay on the bed, groaning with bandages wrapped around his head. Lin Hui had sprained her ankle and walked with a limp. Su Jianqing had bought a new phone but constantly felt it was overheating. Only Su Mingzhi became the odd one out in the family. The next morning, he knocked on my door, holding two pieces of paper. One was the floor plan of the villa, and the other was a printed diagram of the 8 trigrams. With a serious expression, he said to me, "Little sister, I did some research last night. And your constitution is quite metaphysical. I've already calculated it for you. Your room is in the Qian position, which is extremely auspicious. However, the kitchen is in the Li position, which belongs to fire. It's best if you don't go there today. Also, our eldest brother's room is in the Ju-Ming position. He's at risk of bloodshed today, so I've already warned him not to get out of bed." After saying this, he handed me a black card. "This is a supplementary card, no password needed. Spend as you like. In the future, if anyone in the family is foolish enough to provoke you, just let me know in advance so I can stay far away and avoid being caught in the divine punishment." Looking at his sincere yet somewhat sycophantic expression, I silently accepted the card. This second brother is indeed more perceptive than the others. However, the peaceful days didn't last long. Seeing that these small troubles couldn't harm me but instead brought suffering to herself and her family, Su Nuanyuan finally decided to take drastic action. That afternoon after school, Su Nuanyuan was unusually late in returning home. At 7 o'clock in the evening, the landline at home rang. Su Jianqing answered the phone, and his face turned pale. On the other end of the phone was a processed, hoarse voice. "Your daughter, Su Nuanyuan, is in my hands. If you don't want anything to happen to her, prepare 10 million. Remember, no police. And tell that jinx who just returned to your family. This is only the beginning." The call ended. A deathly silence fell over the living room. Su Mingxian, who had just been able to get out of bed, slammed his fist on the table and roared, "It must be her. It was Su Qing. She's jealous of Nuanyuan, so she colluded with outsiders to kidnap her." Lin Hui completely broke down, rushing over to tear at me. "You poisonous woman, you viper-hearted creature, how could our Su family have given birth to a monster like you? Give me back my Nuanyuan." Su Jianqing, his face ashen, shoved me into a corner and yelled at me, "Call the police. call the police right now and have her arrested. She's the mastermind." They believed it instantly. The kidnapper's clumsy attempt to frame someone was, to them, irrefutable evidence. Su Mingzhi tried to intervene, but Su Jianqing roared at him, "Shut up, have you been bewitched by her too?" They locked me in the room, and I could hear them angrily calling the police outside, saying that there was an inside accomplice of the kidnappers at home, and it was me. I sat on the carpet in the room, unusually calm. I know. Su Nuanyuan is about to face a huge disaster, worse than any before. Because this time, she not only harbored malicious thoughts toward me but also acted on them, attempting to ruin my life. My master once said, "Karma is a cycle, and retribution never fails." She brought this upon herself, and no one can stop it. At this moment, in an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of the city, a few thugs were surrounding Su Nuanyuan, who was tied to a chair, preparing to film a video to send to the Su family. "Little girl, don't blame us, we're just doing a job for money." The leader, a yellow-haired thug, said with a laugh as he took out his phone. Suddenly, the handbrake of their beat-up van parked outside the warehouse failed without warning. The van slowly slid down the slope, picking up speed until it crashed with a bang, precisely hitting a fire hydrant by the roadside. A column of water shot into the sky like a fountain, and the immense water pressure instantly smashed through the warehouse's thin wooden door. Icy cold tap water flooded in, drenching the thugs who were about to film the video, turning them into soaked rats. Their phones were all waterlogged and immediately rendered useless. "Damn, what's going on?" Wang Mao cursed in frustration. "Boss, the door was broken by the water, and now it's stuck by the debris outside." A subordinate panicked and shouted. They wanted to move to another place, but found that the warehouse's iron door was slammed shut by the wind, and the rusty old lock mysteriously jammed on its own. They were locked inside this leaking warehouse. A thug got anxious and wanted to climb out the window. Just as he stepped onto the windowsill, a hornet's nest the size of a basketball, hidden in an inconspicuous corner above the window, suddenly fell and hit him right on the head. The entire warehouse instantly turned into a living hell. 5 hornets swarmed out in full force, launching indiscriminate attacks on the few living people inside the warehouse. "Ah, my face, help, there are wasps." The thugs scurried around in panic, screaming incessantly, jumping up and down in the small warehouse, yet they couldn't escape the swarm of angry killers. Su Nuanyuan was tied to a chair, unable to move, terrified out of her wits. The cold water from the fire hydrant had already risen past her ankles. She watched helplessly as several wasps flew toward her, only able to let out desperate screams. Just then, the sound of police sirens came from outside the warehouse, growing louder and closer. A team of patrol officers was driving on their rounds when, as they approached this area, the right front tire suddenly blew out, forcing them to pull over to the side of the road. "Just our luck, out here in the middle of nowhere," a young officer complained. "Wait, listen. Do you hear that sound coming from the warehouse?" The senior officer leading the team, with sharp ears, pointed toward the abandoned warehouse not far away. They immediately became alert, drew their guns, and cautiously moved closer. The sounds coming from the warehouse were no longer human cries, but a chaotic mix of wailing and buzzing. The police acted decisively, kicking open the jammed wooden door and rushing inside. The scene before them left them utterly stunned. They saw several men covered in stings, fleeing in panic, while one was chased by wasps, stumbled into a leaking pit, and was floundering in the water. Su Nuanyuan, tied to a chair, though largely unstung, was soaked to the bone, shivering from the cold, her face filled with terror. The police quickly subdued the group of thugs who offered almost no resistance. Amid the chaos, the blonde thug's phone fell out of his pocket and onto the ground. The phone, which had already been water damaged and had a black screen, miraculously lit up at that moment, and a recording automatically began playing on the screen. Su Nuanyuan's and the blonde thug's voices could be clearly heard from it. "Once it's done, my parents will definitely kick her out, and then I'll give you the remaining payment in full. Miss Su, rest assured, we handle things cleanly and efficiently." The recording wasn't long, but it was enough to explain everything. The thugs completely broke down. The one with dyed yellow hair knelt on the ground, clutching the police officer's leg and sobbing uncontrollably. "Officer, arrest us, please arrest us now. This place is haunted. We confess to everything. It was her. It was Su Nuanyuan who made us do it. We just wanted money. We didn't expect to get struck by lightning. They thought the hornet's nest was a coincidence. The fire hydrant was a coincidence. But the phone playing the recording by itself was beyond their comprehension, completely shattering their psychological defenses. Half an hour later, the police returned to the Su family villa with the bruised and battered thugs, and the disheartened, ashen-faced Su Nuanyuan. In the living room, Su Jianqing, Lin Hui, and Su Mingxian were anxiously waiting for news of the police arresting me. When they saw Su Nuanyuan being escorted in by the police, they were all stunned. What is going on?" Su Jianqing asked in astonishment. The leading police officer, with a stern expression, played the recording of the miraculous recovery in front of everyone and presented the details of the case. The expressions of the three members of the Su family shifted like a palette, from anger to shock, then to disbelief, and finally to overwhelming shame and embarrassment. They wanted to ruin my reputation, but in the end, it was their own beloved daughter who orchestrated a kidnapping plot just to frame me. At that moment, the lock on my room was opened. Su Mingzhi stood at the door, gave me a done gesture, and lowered his voice to say, "Sis, sorry you had to go through that. I told them all along it wasn't you, but they didn't believe me." I let out a faint in response, walked past him, and descended the stairs step by step. I stopped in front of Su Nuanyuan, who was kneeling on the ground trembling all over, and looked at her with eyes devoid of any warmth. She had finally driven herself into a dead end. 6. After the truth came to light, the Su family fell into an unprecedented state of tension. Su Nuanyuan was taken away by the police for making a false report and defamation. Although the Su family used their connections to help her avoid punishment, she was still ordered to stay at home for self-reflection. She locked herself in her room, too afraid to come out. As for Su Jianqing, Lin Hui, and Su Mingxian, the way they looked at me had completely changed. It was no longer the previous contempt and disgust, but a complex mix of fear, awkwardness, and reverence. They didn't dare to speak loudly to me, and they even avoided making eye contact. No one dared to pick on me at the dinner table anymore. My second brother, Su Mingzhi, naturally became my exclusive butler and spokesperson. Every day, he would hold an almanac and mysteriously tell me, "Little sister, today is not a good day for breaking ground. Stay away from the backyard. They're trimming the plants. Little sister, today is very auspicious in the north. How about I take you to the mall up north? Feel free to spend as you like." I was happy to have some peace and quiet, so I tacitly accepted his somewhat amusing protection. The peaceful days didn't last long before something happened to the Su family's company. The Li family, their business rivals, used underhanded methods to snatch away an important project that the Su Corporation had been preparing for nearly a year. This caused the company's stock price to plummet and resulted in significant losses. During those days, Su Jianqing's face was so gloomy it looked like it could drip water. That evening at dinner, he sighed and lamented, finally unable to hold back, murmuring in front of me intentionally or unintentionally, "This President Li from the Li Group is too ruthless in his actions, leaving no room for others. Someone like him will inevitably face retribution sooner or later." As he spoke, he secretly glanced at me out of the corner of his eye. Lin Hui and Su Mingxian also looked at me nervously, hesitating to speak. They finally showed their true colors, from disgust, to fear, and now, to wanting to use. I slowly put down my bowl and chopsticks, wiped my mouth with a napkin, looked up, and calmly stared at Su Jianqing. "What do you want me to do?" One sentence shattered all that. Su Jianqing was taken aback, then awkwardly rubbed his hands together, forcing an ingratiating smile on his face. "Qingqing, that's not what Dad meant. I just think that Manager Li has terrible character. He's done all sorts of bad things. If he could suffer some retribution, it would be like eliminating a scourge for the people." "Fine." I cut him off. The three members of the Su family all brightened up at the same time. I extended 2 fingers and laid out my conditions. First, build me a traditional Chinese courtyard with the best feng shui on that piece of land in the east of the city, and the property rights belong to me. Second, transfer 10% of the Su Group's dry shares to my name immediately. An outrageous demand. Su Jianqing's smile froze on his face, his eyes filled with shock and pain. That piece of land was worth hundreds of millions. And the 10% equity in the group was an astronomical price, but as he looked into my calm, unfathomable eyes that seemed to see through everything, he remembered the shattered chandelier at home, his son's head injury and sprained waist, and that bizarre kidnapping case. A chill that went straight to the bone made him dare not refuse. He gritted his teeth and finally made a resolute decision. Fine, I agree. I nodded, stood up, and said, I will attend the Lee Group celebration banquet next week. After saying that, I went straight upstairs. In the living room, Su Mingzhe listened with a pounding heart, watching my retreating figure as I went upstairs and then glancing at his father's expression, both relieved and pained. He quietly took out his phone and quickly sent a message to his investment manager. At all costs, sell all the Lee Group stocks we have. Immediately. Right now. 7. The Lee Group celebration banquet was held at the city's most luxurious hotel, attended by a distinguished gathering of guests, grand and extraordinary. I wore the little black dress that Su Mingzhe had carefully prepared for me, sitting quietly in the corner, completely unnoticed. Su Jianqing stayed by my side, restless and uneasy, both expectant and fearful. The stars of the banquet, Li Wanhao, the chairman of the Lee Group, and his arrogant and domineering son Li Tian, stood on the stage in high spirits, basking in the admiration of the crowd. During the toast, they came over to our table with their glasses in hand. Oh my, isn't this President Su? What brings you to our Lee family celebration banquet? Feeling upset after losing the project and looking for some inspiration, Li Wanhao sneered sarcastically, eliciting a few low chuckles from those around. Su Jianqing's face turned red with anger, but he dared not speak out. Li Wanhao's son, Li Tian, fixed his lecherous eyes on me. He reached out flirtatiously, trying to touch my face. President Su, is this the daughter you brought back from the countryside? She looks unlucky, but not bad-looking. Little girl, don't be afraid. If you follow me, I promise you'll live a life of luxury. I held a glass of juice and, just as his greasy hand was about to touch me, I leaned back slightly to avoid it. He missed his grab and, for some reason, slipped. The smooth, mirror-like marble floor tile beneath his feet suddenly cracked with a cracked sound. Ah! Li Tian completely lost his balance and fell backward with a scream. Behind him, for the sake of the banquet's aesthetics, a decorative floor panel had been temporarily removed, revealing the hotel's landscape reservoir below. With a loud splash, Li Tian fell into the water, flailing wildly in the cold pool. The entire room erupted in an uproar. Li Wanhao was furious, and without even bothering to rescue his son, he pointed at my nose and cursed, "It's you, you witch, you're the one behind this." As soon as he finished speaking, the massive LED screen behind him, which had been playing the victory celebration video, suddenly flickered twice. The screen switched, no longer displaying the glorious achievements of the Lee Group, but instead began looping through crystal-clear photos of account books, ironclad evidence of the Lee Group's tax evasion and fraudulent accounting. These materials were the backup plan that Su Mingzhe had prepared in advance by hacking into the system. He never thought they would have a chance to be shown, but unexpectedly, the entire venue erupted in an uproar once again. All the guests were stunned, and countless phones immediately aimed at the screen to start taking pictures. Li Wanhao's face instantly turned deathly pale, and he hurriedly turned around to unplug the power cord. But the moment he touched the power cord, it seemed to have suddenly aged. The outer casing cracked, exposing the wires inside. Zap! A powerful electric current instantly surged through his body. Li Wanhao convulsed violently, his hair standing on end, and foam spewed from his mouth, making him look like a comical dancing frog. In the chaos, all the guests' phones at the banquet began vibrating frantically at the same time. Hello? What? The Lee Corporation's scandals have been fully exposed. Oh my god, check the financial news. Lee's stock price has crashed instantly. The Securities Regulatory Commission and the Tax Bureau have formed a joint investigation team. A grand celebration banquet, within just a few minutes, turned into a live broadcast of judgment and disaster. I picked up that glass of juice and, under the gazes of everyone, filled with terror, awe, and disbelief, took an elegant sip. Standing behind me, Su Jianqing watched the human tragedy unfolding before him. Comparable to a Hollywood disaster film, his legs trembling uncontrollably, yet, His eyes were brimming with irrepressible ecstasy and excitement. He knew that the Su family was about to turn things around, and all of this was because of me. 8. The Leaf family has fallen, overnight. They plummeted from the clouds into the mud. The Su family took advantage of the situation to absorb the markets and projects left behind after the Leaf family's collapse. Not only did they recover their previous losses, but their status and assets soared, making them the true top-tier elite of the city. My Chinese-style courtyard has begun construction, and the company's shares have also been successfully transferred to my name. My family's attitude towards me can no longer be described as awe. It's a kind of humility and caution that borders on worshipping a deity. Su Nuanyuan's last hope was shattered. She was unwilling to give up, as she still had her final reliance, her wealthy fiancé, Zhang Yang. The Zhang family was a true giant, even stronger than the Su family at its peak. Su Nuanyuan tearfully turned to Zhang Yang for help, embellishing the story and portraying me as a witch who practiced sorcery. Zhang Yang, young and full of vigor, didn't believe in any of these superstitions about gods and ghosts at all. He thought it was all just a coincidence, that I had used some underhanded tricks to stand up for his fiancée. He brought a group of bodyguards dressed in black, drove several top-tier sports cars, and stormed into the Su family villa with an aggressive demeanor. "Get Su Qing out here now." Zhang Yang kicked open the slightly ajar door and stood arrogantly in the middle of the living room. Su Jianqing, Lin Hui, and Su Mingxian were so frightened their faces turned pale. They might not fear the Li family, but they absolutely dared not offend Zhang Yang. "Young Master Zhang, young Master Zhang, let's talk this out, it's all a misunderstanding." Su Jianqing greeted him with a bow and a scrape. "Get lost." Zhang Yang pushed him aside, his contemptuous gaze falling on me. "I don't care what underhanded methods you used. Now, immediately, get on your knees and apologize to Nuanyuan, then get the hell out of the Su family, otherwise, I'll have your whole family begging on the streets by tomorrow." Su Mingzhi stepped in front of me and said in a deep voice, "Young Master Zhang, always leave room for maneuver. For we are bound to meet again, my sister." I pulled aside Su Mingzhi, who was shielding me, and calmly walked up to Zhang Yang, lifting my head to look at him. "Are you sure?" I asked softly. My calmness, in Zhang Yang's eyes, was feigned composure. He was provoked and sneered. "I'll give you 3 seconds to think." 3. He had just uttered the first word. Outside the villa, the row of supercars he brought, each worth tens of millions, had their alarms go haywire simultaneously, emitting piercing shrieks that echoed through the sky. Zhang Yang's brow furrowed slightly, but he still persisted, continuing the countdown. 2. The clasp on the strap of his 8-figure Patek Philippe limited edition watch suddenly broke. With a snap, the watch fell onto the hard marble floor, shattering the dial into pieces. Zhang Yang's expression finally changed. The surrounding air seemed to freeze. The Su family even forgot to breathe. I looked at him with a gaze as cold as frost. He still refused to believe it. 9. Playing tricks. The repeated coincidences completely enraged Zhang Yang and also stirred a trace of fear in his heart. He wanted to use more extreme methods to cover up that fear. "I order you to kneel." 1. He roared, raised his hand, and slapped me hard across the face. He intended to use the most direct violence to shatter that mysterious and eerie aura surrounding me. The Su family gasped in shock. My face still showed no expression, just as his hand, adorned with an expensive ring, was about to strike my face. Boom! A clap of thunder exploded in the cloudless sky. The sound was so loud that it made all the windows in the villa buzz and vibrate. Everyone was startled by this thunderclap out of the blue. Zhang Yang's hand froze in mid-air. His phone was vibrating wildly in his pocket. An urgent incoming call. With trembling hands, he answered the phone, only to hear his father's desperate, tearful roar. "It's over, Yang. It's all over." The 300-year-old golden nanma tree behind our ancestral home was just struck by lightning. A bolt came down from the sky and split the entire tree in half. "It's all over." That tree was the feng shui dragon vane planted by a master invited by the Zhang family, symbolizing their clan's century of fortune. When the tree falls, the family falls apart. This phone call drained all the strength from Zhang Yang's body. However, this was only the beginning. As soon as he hung up his phone, a headline from a financial news alert popped up, with a shocking title. Shocking, the Zhang Group suspected of massive cross-border money laundering, core accounting evidence submitted anonymously to Interpol. At the same time, the phones of the aggressive bodyguards brought by Zhang Yang began ringing one after another. Hello, honey, what are you saying? You ran off with someone. Mom, why are you in the hospital? What? You lost all your savings in the stock market. What? My son isn't biologically mine. Complete chaos ensued. The bodyguards, who had been arrogant just moments before, were now thrown into complete disarray, no longer paying any attention to their boss. Zhang Yang stared at the news on his phone, listening to the thunder and the cries of his subordinates. He felt as if the world were spinning around him. Everything he took pride in, his family background, wealth, and power, crumbled to dust in that instant. Thump! Zhang Yang's legs gave way, and he knelt stiffly before me, his face ashen. I looked down, gazing at this man who had been so arrogant just moments before, and softly said, "Now, who needs to apologize?" Su Nuan, standing at the staircase, witnessed this miraculous scene with her own eyes. Her last pillar of support had knelt before me in the most tragic and unbelievable way. Her spirit completely shattered. She let out a scream, her eyes rolled back, and she fainted. In the living room, Su Jianqing, Lin Hui, and Su Mingxian looked at Zhang Yang kneeling on the ground, then at me, their eyes filled with nothing but the purest, most primitive fear and awe. It was like watching a god walking among mortals. 10. The dust has settled. The Zhang family, once a colossal force that could summon wind and rain in this city, quickly collapsed under a multinational investigation, went bankrupt, and was liquidated. Zhang Yang was also imprisoned on multiple charges. After Su Nuanyuan woke up, she found she had lost everything and completely lost her sanity, leading to her being sent to a sanatorium. Not long after, Su Jianqing and his wife finally made up their minds, found Su Nuanyuan's biological parents, who were still engaged in petty theft, gave them a sum of money, and had them take Su Nuanyuan back. From then on, Su Nuanyuan was no longer part of the Su family. When my eldest brother Su Mingxian sees me, he no longer dares to speak loudly and always keeps his distance, like a mouse spotting a cat, but occasionally, he awkwardly asks, Have you eaten? My Chinese-style courtyard was soon completed, with every brick and tile personally designed and supervised by the country's most renowned feng shui master. The courtyard was named Anqing Residence. I moved in, cutting off all disturbances from the outside world. My parents regularly deposit huge dividends into my bank account. During holidays, they cautiously send various gifts, inquiring about my well-being, but they never dare to set foot in my courtyard. That place has become the forbidden ground of the Su family, as well as its sacred ground. Second brother Su Mingzhi became my only external contact. He managed all the properties under my name and handled all the mundane affairs I didn't want to deal with. Years later, I felt that the innate hostility I had carried with me since birth had almost completely dissipated, nourished by the courtyard and long-lasting peace. I returned to the Taoist temple where I grew up. My master was very old by then. He sat under the ginkgo tree in the courtyard, smiling as he looked at me. Master, what is my fate really? Am I truly the lone star of heavenly calamity? I asked the question that had been buried in my heart for over 20 years. The master shook his head, pointed at me, and then pointed to the sky. You are not the lone star of heavenly calamity. Your fate is, the purple star descends to the world, carrying the universe within. You can distinguish good from evil and discern cause and effect. What about the so-called misfortune? That is not misfortune, it is your universe, your protection. It reflects all malice directed at you. The greater the malice from the other party, the stronger the rebound. You don't need to do anything. The way of heaven will naturally punish them. The master sighed and said, Back then, I said you had a heavy aura of hostility because I feared that, being young and ignorant, you wouldn't know how to control your own power and would instead be harmed by the backlash of malevolence. That's why I had you cultivate in tranquility at the temple, to calm your mind and nurture your nature. Suddenly, it all made sense to me. So it turns out, I am not a harbinger of disaster, but a walking light of righteousness, a judge of evil intentions. Then, what if someone is genuinely good to me? I asked softly. The master smiled and pointed to the thriving ginkgo tree beside us. That tree was planted by your own hands when you first came to the temple. You watered it every day and treated it with sincerity. Look at it. Doesn't it seem more vibrant and spirited than the other trees in the temple? That tree, under the sunlight, is lush with branches and leaves, its foliage shimmering, full of vitality and tranquility. I understand now. Malice will be punished, while kindness will be rewarded. When I returned home, I saw my second brother handling company affairs. Under his management, the Sioux family's business is thriving, and he has become a rising star in the business world. Steady and capable, when he saw me, a sincere smile spread across his face, no longer the initial fear and calculation, but genuine closeness and respect. Sister, you're back. I brought you your favorite Yunding tea. I noticed that he has been wearing a simple wooden bracelet I casually gave him many years ago on his wrist. It has been polished by him to a glossy, jade-like smoothness. He smiled and shook his wrist. You gave it to me. Wearing it makes everything go smoothly. In my courtyard, the flowers and plants I planted myself are growing exceptionally lush. Under the sunlight, I brewed a pot of tea for myself, gazing at the vibrant life filling the yard. I know, my misfortune has passed, and the future is all smooth sailing, as long as no one provokes me again.